Good morning, everyone. My name is Kirsten, and I'm part of the programming team here at PreMed CC, and I'm happy to introduce our speaker today. Mr. Hugo Mora-Torres, originally from Michoacan, Mexico, relocated to the United States at the age of 3. And unlike many children who dream of sports stardom, he aspired to serve his community through healthcare. In his professional journey, he entered the field of academic advising with a focus on enhancing diversity within the medical workforce. And with over 40 years of academic counseling, he has held significant positions at the UC Davis School of Medicine, Stanford School of Medicine, UC Santa Cruz Career Center, and the San Jose State College of Health and Human Sciences. Currently, he is employed at the Career Center at UC Berkeley. He holds a master's degree in academic counseling from San Jose State University. And additionally, he's a member of the National Association of Advisors for the Health Professions, further underscoring his commitment to both education and community service. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And thank you, PreMed CC committee and Jubin for inviting me to do this presentation. I'm going to start my slideshow. I do want to make a quick correction. I no longer work at Berkeley. I have retired, and I'll go into more details why. This is who I am now. I'm now a health professions advising consultant, which means that I would like to work with community colleges and universities to help train the advisors to be more effective with pre-med. So I want to take advantage of my knowledge and experience and share that with the advisors and counselors and coaches. All right. So I also want to say that I'm an optimist, and that's why I have a sunrise coming up there. And I've always been an optimist. I was born an optimist, but it's also being reinforced by having worked for all these years with students and what they can do once as an advisor you support them and nurture them. So whether you're starting okay, hold on a second, the quiz over to the side. Whether you're just starting the pre-med career or firmly on the way to becoming a physician, my goal is to help you unlock your academic and career potential. Today's session, I'm hoping to have you understand the language of being a pre-med. It's a lot of jargon and acronyms and stuff, and you really need to know those as you move forward. Help you gain practical tips on how to approach coursework, and also end up giving you some tips on developing effective study habits. A little bit more about what has prepared me to be here today to share my knowledge. As mentioned, I'm an immigrant from Mexico, and I started when I was 3. I'm a legal resident, so I came here. My dad sponsored us. I only say that because I know there's some of our audience may be undocumented, and they have different challenges than the one I had, more challenges than I had. I was raised in the Mexican barrio in Silicon Valley. Back when I came, as you can tell with all the gray hair, I'm a little older. So I came, when in the late 60s, 1960s. I'm probably older than your parents and your grandparents. But I worked summers harvesting apricots, cherries, and pears till I was 15. So for 12 years, I was a farm worker during the summers. So I learned about hard work. I learned about being a blue-collar worker. I learned to appreciate the wonderful barrio that I came from, the wonderful neighborhoods, both the camaraderie of people saying hi to each other and helping each other out, but also being wary of the dangers of living on the streets, the gangs, the drugs, the alcohol, et cetera, the violence. My first career out of college was working at a community health center called Gardner Health Clinic. Now, I mentioned that because it's important that you as students become familiar with the network of community health centers, which tend to be nonprofit, and they're usually located near where you live. And many of you probably went to a clinic that was a community health center, and you didn't know that it was a community health center. So please, I encourage you to be conscious of the community health centers as being providers of significant quantity and quality of healthcare. After several years of working at the clinic, I joined UC Davis School of Medicine as a pre-med advisor for a newly funded program to diversify the workforce. And let me tell you why I left the clinic and why I changed from being a clinic manager to an advisor. I was prompted by the fact that we could not keep We could not hire and we could not keep a diverse physician and clinical pool. In other words, we would hire usually new graduates out of medical school, usually Anglo, usually males, and they would work for us for 2 or 3 months and then leave for higher paying jobs, usually overnight. They wouldn't even give us a 2-week notice. So often we'd have to call the patients and say, "I'm sorry, but your appointment's canceled today. Our doctor's no longer here." After a while, my staff revolted. I had staff and they revolted against me. I was a clinic manager and they said, "You know what? This is not fair. Why don't you call the patients and see all the stuff that happens?" So I did. I picked up the phone. I started calling the patients, and invariably I got responses that hurt my soul. To this day, I still get a little emotional when I remember those conversations that I had with the patients, usually in Spanish. And it was to the degree of, we're hardworking people. We deserve better than this. This is the third time my appointment has been canceled. I am 4 or 5 months pregnant, 6 months pregnant. I haven't received health care yet, prenatal care. Or my child has asthma. What are we supposed to do? I don't want to go to the emergency room. I wait 4 or 5 hours, and then I get a big bill. You're my home clinic. Oh my gosh, that tore my heart. And so when UC Davis let me know that they were hiring for this position to diversify the workforce and improve the numbers of providers heading out to primary care sites in the community, I jumped on it. I said, I want to work on the prevention side instead of the reaction side of healthcare. And so that's what started me working. And to this day, I carry that memory of, offering quality and quantity and access to care in the community that similar to the ones I came from. All right, back to after Davis, I moved over to Stanford School of Medicine, and then I got my master's in public health, my master's in healthcare in health professions advising and counseling, and then I worked at UC Santa Cruz in the Career Center, at San Jose City College. So I've also have some state college experience. San Jose State as an academic career advisor, and then at this point I'm getting a little gray in the hairs, a little older, and I say, you know what, I'm ready to retire soon. I have 3 grandkids. I want to enjoy them. So I said, let me finish my career by going to UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley if you don't already know it, is a machine. It cranks out, I think, 500 applicants to medical school. Is like the top 10 in the country in producing pre-meds. I bet very few of them are people of color. So there's a lot of work yet to be done. So along the way, I joined the National Association of Advisors for the Health Professions. To me, that's an important fact, because if you're looking for an advisor that's health professions or pre-med, I would ask them, are you a member of the NAHP, National Association of Advisors for the Health Professions? Why does that matter? Because as advisors, we get frequent trainings, easily 4 or 5 times per semester or per quarter, directly from the deans of admissions from different programs, whether it's medical school, PA school, public health school, physical therapy school. We hear from the source about what they're expecting to see in competitive applicants. That information helps us prepare you best to be competitive and prepared. Not only that, but we also get an annual conference where we get to meet with the different medical schools and the admissions officers. So we get the latest and most current information. So besides me having lots of experience, it's important that knowledge be current, so that I'm sharing with you not something that's old and dated, something that's new and current with what's being effective to get you into medical school or PA school, wherever you want to go. Okay, that's why that experience is important. As far as experience, on a typical advising year, I would see at least 800 pre-meds, 1,000 or so students for advising. About 80% of them are pre-meds. So if you do the math over my career, I've seen a heck of a lot of students. I learned a lot. I've seen a lot. I've heard a lot of really good stories and a lot of sad stories about the trials, the tribulations of being a pre-med or wanted to aspire to a health career. To conclude, I am married. I have 3 kids, and I'm the grandfather to 3 kids as well. And this is very important. We're all active voters. Most of my kids and my family members are Democrats. Doesn't matter what your party is, go out and vote. It's very, very important that you vote in 6 weeks, I believe. Okay, that's my last pitch there. All right. So really what I want to do today is demystify the journey becoming a successful pre-med student. The information I'm sharing with you um, is, to some of you maybe, oh, I know this already, and I've heard this before. I've been to the website, but I encourage you to stay tuned in because and practice being a good listener. Sometimes, if you think you already know something, you tune out and you miss important details. And listening is a very important skill to being a good doctor. Um, so today I'm trying to give information that's going to form the foundation for next Saturday's workshop. Is going to be more practical about how to prepare your application, more to nuts and bolts of being applying for medical school. So this important is the foundational information for that. I'm going to address you all as if you're all committed pre-med students. However, in my experience, I realize that many students or some students will change majors and careers several times before you find your niche, whatever that may be. Hopefully, when you do change if you do change into a different major or career, it's because you chose to, not because an advisor, a peer, a parent said, no, 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 no. Don't be a biology major. Don't be a public health major. Don't be a psychology major. Don't go to medical school. You're not going to make it. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. Listen to your heart, your mind. You make your own choices. Okay. You have autonomy. It's not easy, but it's doable. That being said, I also want to let you know that there's some advisors that we in the advising profession call gatekeepers. They stand between the medical school admissions and you, and they say you can go in, you can't. You can go in, you can't. If you see people that you think are gatekeepers, find others. Don't go to see them anymore. They're just gonna pull you down. Find others. Keep looking until you find ones that are like myself. Si se puede. Yes, you can. And as long as it's not a naive, yes, you can. In other words, it's based on realism. We give you a realistic plan of what you need to do to accomplish your career and academic goals. Okay. It's after 20 years, I've taken students who were 2.5, 2.6 GPA when I met them, and over time, with a lot of coaching, a lot of nurturing, a lot of support, a lot of rah-rah, a lot of tough love, most of them attain their career and the career and academic goals. So, whatever you learn today, you can apply it to medical school, physician assistant, nurse practitioner, doctor in physical therapy, occupational therapy, dentistry. You name your career. Whatever you learn today can be applied to that if you choose not to continue to go to medical school. Okay. All right. All right. So we're going to do a little bit of reverse engineering. We're going to do an overview of the admissions process, and then also for medical school, and also reverse engineering. What can we learn from that process? Going to inform your planning and decision making. All right. So medical school applying medical schools has 4 components. The first is the primary application, known as the AMCAS. It's a very important acronym. AMCAS stands for Association of American Medical College Application Service. American Medical College Application Service. It's a common app. You can apply to as many as 150 medical schools in the country, but our typical successful applicant will apply to 20 to 25 schools. All right, if you're over 30, that's kind of overkill. You're going to be overly busy. So there's like a good, basically the range between 20 and 30, but the average is about 20 to 25. If you pass the initial screening based on GPA, you're going to get automatic secondaries or supplementary applications, usually 8 to 10 writing prompts about, you're limited to about 800 characters, which is a paragraph. If you pass that level of that screening, then you get the interview, the medical school interview. And there'll be a lot more details next week, so please tune in next week. If you handle this process well, you get accepted. If you don't, you don't get accepted. The question I have for you is, where in this continuum, 1 through 4, do the letters of recommendation / letters of evaluation fit in? That might be a good question for the next time we have a quiz. And the answer is, those letters are submitted to the admissions committee when they request it after they receive the supplementary, before you get the interview. All right. So medical schools, there are 150 of them, are practicing holistic review. both AMCAS and Holistic Review there's a link attached to these when you click on it. Many of you have heard or have not heard of Holistic Review, but most of you do not have a thorough understanding what that is. Okay. One other thing I want to mention is, besides 150 medical schools, there's approximately 60 DO schools, Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine. They are parallel and equivalent to MD schools. The graduates from DO schools compete for the same residency slots as MD graduates. My doctor at Kaiser is a graduate of UC Berkeley, and then he went to Western School of Medicine to get his DO, and he works at Kaiser and takes great care of me. So there are parallel paths to being a clinician. Here's a quick graph or graphic of Holistic Review. I don't want you to focus on all the details, but what I do want you to get is what these 3 gold boxes stand for. So the first and most important thing is going to be the metric, not because it's a measure of whether you're going to be a good doctor. It's a measure of whether you'll even be noticed by the medical school. The metrics are going to be your GPA, GPA trends, and MCAT scores. If you pass the initial screening on that, then the medical school wants to see how wonderful you are by looking at your application and learning about your experiences, starting with your life experience, and that's communicated through your personal statement. There's other experiences. These are not all boxes you got to check, but you got to do some of these to grow as a person and as somebody preparing for the medical profession. The way you describe these experiences in your application, the medical school is now making a list of your attributes, your character traits, otherwise known as competencies. Those words are synonymous: attributes, character traits, competencies. These are what medical schools think make good doctors. The metrics just get you noticed. If your numbers are high enough, they tell the medical school, this person, we're confident, can handle the rigors of medical school science and the national boards, the 2 big exams that you take after the 2nd year and then near the end of your 4th year. Huge exams. The MCAT is nothing compared to the national boards, step 1 and step 2. But these numbers just indicate that you're gonna more than likely graduate in 4 years from medical school and not have any or very few academic issues. That's the only reason they matter. They're not indicators of you being a good doctor. That's what gets you noticed by the medical schools. Let's continue to unpack this. Your primary application is going to contain biographical information about you, personal information, your name and address, date of birth. Well, I'm going to go one by one, and the ones that have asterisks, I'm going to elaborate. Address, why does that matter? Because some schools are kind of regional. UC Davis prefers students from Northern California, Central Valley. UC Riverside prefers students from the Inland Empire. Okay, so that's why the address matters, besides so you can get correspondence as needed. Date of birth, around how old are you at the time you apply? Now, the question that I have is, do medical schools care if you're 21 and applying straight out of as a senior and hoping to graduate and go straight into medical school? Do they care if you're 30, 32, 33? Are you too old for medical school? And the answer is that medical schools do not have an age where you're too old or you're ideal for applying for medical school. What is the average first year? What is the age of the average first year medical student? I'll let you think about that for about 10 seconds, then I'll answer it. The average first year medical student is 25 and a half years old, 25.5. What does that mean? I interpret that as saying that people who actually succeeded in getting to medical school took their time and did it right, whether that meant 1, 2, or 3 gap years. Students who get in when they're 19, 20, 21, usually, but most students, the average is around 24, 25 years old, 26, 24, 25, 26 years old. All right. Where did you go to school, undergrad? So community college, university, Stanford, San Jose State, San Jose City College, Mount San Antonio, down south, et cetera, et cetera. Now there is a myth that medical schools do not like community college science courses, and I call that a myth. I've had many students who, were not bio majors, business or whatever, and all of a sudden when they were graduated, decided they wanted to go to medical school, and their best option was go back to community college and take the pre-med courses there, their biology, chemistry, physics, and math. They did all their pre-med courses at a community college, and they did fine in the admissions process. The caveat being they also did well in the MCAT. So, so if you're a community college student, my recommendation is take as many of your science courses as you can while you're at community college. Don't transfer to UC Berkeley or San Jose State when you still need physics. Try to take it at your community college where you still need organic chemistry. Take them all before you transfer into community college, because once you get into your university, wherever you get accepted into, you're going to find out that these students have a little bit of a head start on you. They already know the pace. They know the instructors. They're comfortable being in the class of 500, 600 for your basic sciences, whereas your community college maybe is 40, 50, or 100 students. Now all of a sudden you're one of 500, 600. It's easy to get lost. It's easy to get disenfranchised from that school. It's hard to get up to speed right away. So that's why I recommend, as far as a school attendant, take as many, if possible, all your pre-med courses at your community college. And I guess I should also mention that the pre-med requirements are very simple. I'm not even going to write it in here. It's the 1-year rule, 1 academic year. 1 academic year of, whether it's quarter or semester, of general biology, preferably human biology. 1 academic year of general chemistry. 1 academic year of organic chemistry. 1 academic year of physics. That's it. And the math, whatever math you need to get through these courses. Calculus is not required, but some physics courses are calculus based. So you got to look at your prerequisites for the physics courses offered in your college. And if you need calculus, you might have to take calculus. But there is no calculus in the MCAT. So these 4 main science courses, biology, general chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, that is the basic content of the MCAT. That is all you need to know for the MCAT. Now, I'm going to say that with a caveat that most medical schools either require or highly recommend biochemistry, upper division biochemistry, taught at the university level. If there's a biochemistry offered at community college, it's probably a survey of organic chemistry, not the one you need. You need the upper division biochemistry, which does require human biology and organic chemistry before you can take biochemistry and do it well. So there is a significant amount of biochemistry in the MCAT, more than you would normally learn in a good human biology class, Bio 1A or Bio 1B that you take at your community college. So that being said, I would add biochemistry as a requirement, not a real, but general requirement for medical school and the MCAT. Okay. Citizenship. If you're undocumented, there are some schools that you would be considered that you would be considered for admissions. There's pre-med.
PreHealth Dreamers.
There you go, PreHealth Dreamers. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of something else. PreHealth Dreamers, thank you, Juben, is a great organization that has a list of schools that are undocu-friendly. Okay, the UCs tend to come to mind, and also Loyola and Chicago, but there's others. That's the only reason they ask for citizenship. Your ethnicity, I only going to mention that affirmative action is not in place right now for medical school admissions. So medical schools are not going around it, but they're using another tool called holistic review to diversify the workforce. But they only want to know ethnicity. The medical schools do just because they do. I don't know why, but they do. How did you pay for college? They want to know what proportion of your college education was from Pell Grants, scholarships, or family, was from your family. How much? Basically, a measure of affluence. If you're not affluent, if you had Pell Grants, if your parents don't make that much money, but they still happen to pay for your college, they want to know that's important to them because they want to know what barriers you as a student had, financial and otherwise, to get through to school. And that shows an evidence of resilience, which is important for getting through medical school. They want to know more about your parents, what level of education that they have. Basically, are you first generation of college? What kind of barriers did you have to face to get through that? That comes up to item B, other impactful experiences, a section of the application. It used to be called up to 3 years ago, it used to be called statement of disadvantage, but that had a negative connotation, a stigma. So they changed to other impactful experiences. When you apply, you don't have to necessarily fill that out. You get I believe 350 characters which is a half a paragraph to state about situations or circumstances that affected your ability, to go through higher education. Poverty. I had a student whose father was addicted to gambling, and they were homeless most of the time because of that. Um, did you come from a neighborhood that there was a lot of violence and drug abuse, and alcoholism? So what barriers did you face that in your life that affect your education and or your health? Those are what the other impactful experiences where you could explain a little bit about that. And usually you want to say that very matter of factly. You don't want to like, just use words that you're trying to get pity from the reader. Just write that very matter of fact. Okay, there's also the activity section: work, volunteer, healthcare, clinic, et cetera, et cetera. So if you notice, this activity section corresponds to experiences of this graph here. Um, so in my opinion, you have to have some kind of healthcare clinical experience while you're before you apply, preferably in college. Not when you're in high school. That's just, you were too immature back then to process these experiences in a way that's going to really enrich your preparation for medical school. Why? Because you want to communicate to the medical admissions committee through your essays that you're realistic about the practice of medicine. And one way to combine healthcare clinical experience with work, because many of us had to work while you're in college, is to work as an ER emergency room technician or as a medical scribe. Medical scribes, it's passive. You're typing into the medical record everything you observe, but you're seeing a whole heck of a lot. You're seeing the whole subjective objective assessment plan. I call it the SOAP continuum of a typical clinical visit, whether it's ER or primary care. As a matter of fact, many primary care clinics, such as Ravenswood in Palo Alto and Clínica Raza in Oakland, there's others throughout the state and country, there are primary care clinics where they hire medical scribes because medical scribes are efficiency for the doctor to see more patients and still be able to keep notes on the medical records in timely fashion. So anyways, so that's a good, think about that as one way to combine work and healthcare / clinical experience. Volunteering is valued by many many medical schools. So if as you're getting ready to apply, you're going to read the mission and vision of the medical schools. And some of them will imply that they value people that volunteer and give back to the community. Okay. So if that's in you and you have time, do it. Research. Do you absolutely need research? No. Many colleges and universities do not have ample research opportunities for all their pre-meds. I've had pre-meds who tried year after year and didn't get it, and then they felt like, why even bother applying if I'm not going to get in? I don't have research experience. And that's a myth. If you're curious about research, there's a scientist in you who wants to explore research, definitely go for it. But if you're more interested in patient care, knowing more about your community healthcare, primary care, that kind of thing, then focus more on healthcare and primary care and volunteering as your and your activities that you choose. So in other words, be strategic. Know yourself, know your volunteers, know your interests, and also know how much time do you have. Because research can become a job as many as 20 hours per week, as at least if you're at Berkeley or some of the UCs, and they have research opportunities in the nearby medical schools. It can be a job that requires about 20 hours per week. That's significant chunk of your time. I had students who focused too much on research and not enough on their academics, and therefore their GPA wasn't competitive for medical school. They were thinking was, well, research will carry me through. Erroneous and myth, and that's a myth. So your academic history, okay, where did you take your classes? How did you do? What kind of grades did you get? Did you meet all the pre-med requirements that the medical schools want that I mentioned earlier? That's what that indicates. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide, elaborate on that a little bit more. Then there's the personal statement. Why MD and why you? 5,300 characters. That's one page, 12-point font, half-inch margins. That's not a heck of a lot. I'll talk about more on my strategy of putting forward your best your best personal statement next week. So please tune in for that. Finally, your letters of evaluation, also known as letters of recommendation. Medical schools prefer the term evaluation over recommendation. Evaluation is it connotes a more objective measure of the character traits or competencies that you showed. I didn't highlight this. I should have, but there's a link. If you do please write your notes, or you might even open up a browser right now and type in AAMC, capital A, capital A, capital M, capital C, AAMC, guideline, letters of recommendation. I encourage you to read that once the session's over, because if you're at a community college, you might want to get a letter of recommendation or two now while you're still at community college, rather than 4 years down the road when you're ready to apply. If you're in your university, you want to get that letter of evaluation now as opposed to later. You can use something called Interfolio, which is a service that'll store that letter of recommendation till you're ready to apply, as opposed to asking for that letter 4 years down the road and the person forgot about you, doesn't know who you are, et cetera, et cetera. So read AAMC, guideline for letter writers. It gives you instructions, and this is a website you can share with whoever's going to write your letter, so they have a better idea what the medical schools are looking for. Okay, don't wait till you're ready to apply it and then think about letters of evaluation. Think about that now. Be strategic. You can store as many as 8 letters or 9 letters in your AMCAS application, and you select which ones you want to send to different medical schools. You may have them stored in your AMCAS and choose not to use 2 or 3 of those. Only so you can tailor which of those letters in your letter bank you're gonna use for the different medical schools. Okay, I'll talk about that more next week. So medical school admission is a very competitive process. We all know that. Every year, 23,000 new medical students start medical school. There's 23,000 seats in the 150 scattered throughout the 150 medical schools in the country. This is not counting DO schools, by the way. This is just MD schools. And there's also around 53,000 applicants. So that means 57% of the students that applied got rejected. 43% got accepted. Some of those 57% who got rejected will apply the following year or the following year after that, or the following cycles. So it's a very, very competitive process. One of the most common questions that I get from students is, how do I stand out? What can I do to be noticed? So that leads to some students wanting to check all the boxes. I'm going to show here again. All the boxes being research, volunteer, community service, healthcare, leadership, clubs, global, doing international experience. The feeling is that if I want to stand out, I got to do all of those. And let me see where to go. And that's not true. Select the ones you have time for. Do them well. Do them well. So well that you do them so well that whoever is supervising, whoever works with you, is going to want to write a good letter of recommendation for you, So instead of you writing a personal statement, I did this and I did this and I did that, you're really glorifying yourself. It's better if it comes from somebody who's observed you and writes a letter of evaluation and says, this is what I noticed about Kirsten. And when she was working for me at the Boys and Girls Club in East San Jose or East LA, or this is what I noticed about Jubin when he was an ER tech and how he was, multilingual, multicultural, and he was one step ahead of me, always, getting everything ready. And he was a wonderful to work with. He never said no. He always did whatever was asked. And not only that, but I noticed when he didn't know that I noticed, but when I was out of the operatory where we were working on the emergency patients, he would always, calm them down in a soothing, calming manner. Almost like if it was a second half of me within the context of his job description, never stepping out of his job description, but he was always calm, competent. See, he oozes competency and confidence. So that's like the kind of letter you want. So that's what I'm saying. Instead of trying to check all the boxes and writing, wonderful stuff about yourself, do several, write wonderful stuff about yourself and what you learned from those experiences, but then have that backed up by wonderful letters of recommendation. So quality over quantity of experiences. And more importantly, be your authentic self, be your authentic self, be your authentic self. Don't try to be somebody you think the medical schools want in their medical school. That's what I get. So I get students say, what is this? What does UC Davis want to see? What do I do to impress UC Davis or UCLA or Harvard? They all tell me the same thing. After countless trainings from different medical school deans, we want to see the real student. After a while, seeing all these levels of the application, we get an idea who they are and what kind of fluff they added to their application. And we don't like fluff in the application. We like authenticity. Okay, so it's not uncommon for advisors to tell a student, you got to get your GPA up. Come on, you got to get that GPA, otherwise don't even bother applying to medical school. Okay, so the best thing to do that I tell all my students is assess yourself. Where are you at right now, whether you're first, second, third year of community college, or whether you're a transfer student, or whether you started at San Jose State and you're now in your third or fourth year. Assess where you're at. And I like to use a tool called the AMCAS GPA calculator. You just open up a browser, type in AMCAS GPA calculator. And I like the Loma Linda School of Medicine tool. It's just easier to use. It's already formatted. Basically, when you click on that Loma Linda School of Medicine link, it'll download an Excel spreadsheet to your computer. It's already formatted for you to use. I'll show you a sample of that in a little bit. Now you know where you're at right now, and that's going to give you an idea of what you need to do between now and the time you apply. The other thing is, where are you in terms of your pre-med preparation? It's for your pre-med courses, your upper division courses. And also, if you're not happy with your academic progress to date, take a good hard look in a positive way, constructive self-criticism is what is keeping me from reaching my academic potential? Am I working too many hours? Am I getting home too late and starting studying at 11 o'clock in the evening when I'm tired and I'm working till 3 o'clock in the morning? Really a waste of time because my mind and my body is tired. But that's the only time that I have. Is that situation? Am I involved in toxic relationships with my roommates, my partner, my friends from the neighborhood, my hood friends, et cetera, et cetera? Am I partying too much? Am I partying every Friday night because I want to, I like being the life of the party, and then the next morning I don't get up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, in the afternoon, and then I go to work, and basically I don't have enough time to study. Well, so now you got to look at your priorities. So identify or I'm just reading all the notes, I'm reading all my flashcards, I'm reading all the books, I'm still getting C's. What is wrong with me? Am I not smart enough? And the answer is yes, you're smart enough, but you might not be working smart. Okay. So that's a typical response that many advisors give their students. Just do it. Come on, study harder, work harder. So once you identify the factors, I have some tips for you down in the next slide. So bear with me. You have to come up with a plan of action, and I hot linked SMART goals as a way to make a semester plan and broken down into a week by week SMART goal plan. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely or time bound. An example would be, man, I got a 2.2 right now GPA. This is a student talking, man, and I want to get to, to get ready for medical school. I'm only a sophomore. I still got, uh, 2 years, maybe a gap year to get that GPA up to above where it's competitive. But I got to start now. So I'm gonna get A's. Wrong. I'm gonna shoot for A's, settle for B's. I'm gonna shoot for a 4.0, but if I get a 3.0, that's progress. If I get a 2.5, that's progress. But and this is what I'm gonna do. That's specific. I want a 3.0 GPA this semester. Measurable. I'm gonna do 7 or 8 things that are measurable that'll get me to that goal. I'm gonna cut back on my work hours. I'm gonna take out loans and work less. I'm gonna cancel these toxic relationships because they're not helping me. They're just holding me back. I'm only gonna party at the end of the semester when I get good grades. And I'm gonna read, instead of a party, I'm gonna read not just my books for school, but also extracurricular, because I'm gonna get ready for the CARS, the critical analytical reasoning section of the MCAT. And I understand it's a reading test, and I need to read stuff that I'm not familiar with and grow my vocabulary. So that's not necessarily going to impact my GPA, but it's going to impact my growth as a pre-med. But these other 4 or 5 goals that I've mentioned are going to help me improve my GPA. So that link is to the Purdue undergraduate advising center that has a really good way to use SMART goals for you to be intentional in your approach to being a good student. Then you want to assess that periodically, both what am I doing well that's working, I'm going to continue doing that. What am I not doing well? What do I need to improve on? That's a positive and negative feedback loop. Just check it frequently, maybe at the end of every week, and then the next week you improve on whatever you want to improve on. Definitely don't do it at the end of the semester because you waste a lot of time. Do it on a regular basis, and after a while, this becomes normal to you. This becomes just the way you study. The analogy is that if you're a professional baseball player, or you can use any analogy, but this is the one that's current right now because of the playoffs. You're not hitting that 95-mile-per-hour fastball that you're hitting earlier. Is because your basics, your mechanics, your swing, your timing is off. So in other words, you got to do these activities frequently enough so that it becomes habit. It becomes part of your subconscious. And that's what professional baseball players do. They go to the batting cage hundreds of hours till their swing becomes automatic, subconscious. It's reactive. They can react to a fastball in less than a second and hit it, or a curveball. So you want to do these SMART goals, this approach to being an intentional learner over and over and over and over, because this is what is going to carry you into medical school, and have you do well in the MCAT, and have you do well in medical school. Okay, I'm going to elaborate more about that in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to gamble a little bit and give you something from my observation. If you want to be competitive for medical school, to get in, to be noticed by the medical school, the green number is a GPA at or above a 3.5. If you apply to 25 schools and your GPA is above 3.5 science, and your MCAT scores above, say, a 507, you're going to get 25 supplementaries overnight. That means you pass the initial screenings. The medical schools haven't read your personal statement, your application. All they know is your numbers are good enough. We're interested in this person. If your GPA is between a 3.2 and 3.5, my experience has been half the medical schools are going to give you automatic supplementary. The other half going to wait and see, before they might put you on the wait and see list. So I've had students get in with that. Okay, so don't say I'm not going to apply. Meet with an advisor, go to conferences, talk to mentions and representatives from different medicals, get the feel for what they're thinking about if a 3.3 is competitive for their school at that point. You also might want to consider doing a gap year to focus on building up your GPA through a post-bac program of some sort. If you're between a 2.8 and a 3.2 post-bac experience, you got to do a post-bac. Don't apply with that GPA. The caveat being some international medical schools would be interested in you with a decent MCAT score, and decent MCAT score being above a 500 for them, not for U.S. medical schools. So an advisor can certainly give you the cost benefit analysis of doing a post-bac experience versus applying to international medical school, and probably get into that. International medicals are a good option. I've had many students who chose not to do a post-bac and went to international medical school, and they got in the first try, and they're now doctors without any academic problems. Doctors in the United States, by the way, not doctors in wherever the medical school is located, the international medical school is located. If you're less than a 2.8, black does not mean that don't even bother applying. Now again, that's no connotation. It just happens to use courses. You're in a hole, my friend. There's a way to do that, but you really got to meet with an advisor who's experienced and is así se puede type of attitude, and give you a very realistic plan that's might take 3 or 4 years to get to where you're going to be noticed by some school, international probably. So these are not absolute. They're just my observations based on many, many, many years of advising and success or lack of success with students. Students who are in the red or black zone and who are still want to give it a try, I would say about half of them end up not finishing their goals. They say, you know what, forget about this. I gave it a try for a year or two. I'm going to continue something else. Okay, that's okay. Nobody told you couldn't do it. You figured it out for yourself that you were not gonna. You were not ready or able to invest the time and energy to get out of that, into a better, more competitive range. The last question that I have here is: the community college GPA less valuable than university science GPA? And the answer is no. The caveat being that if you're at a 4-year university and you're avoiding your science courses there because you want to, take the easier course at a community college, the medical schools will notice that. So don't do that as a strategy. Do that only as, hey, that was just the way it worked. It worked out for me. I couldn't go straight into college for whatever reason, so I went to community college because that's where I got in. I didn't apply early enough, save money, whatever reason. So if you start off at a community college and you go to university, your community college courses are equally valued by the university you transfer there, but also by the medical schools. The caveat being is that whatever you learn at community college translate to you doing well in the MCAT as well. Okay. Here's a sample GPA trend. I've had students who, usually first generation of college students who started off in the 2 point. So the way this graph works is that, and this is exactly what's going to show up when you do an AMCAS GPA calculation activity. You're going to enter all your courses for FROSH, SOF, for your first year of college, second year of college, third year of college, fourth year of college, and post-bac if you have it. And then there's going to be a box that you check that for all the science courses that activates the formulas for Excel, and it gives you a real-time GPA calculation for that semester, but also cumulative, whether you're a sophomore, junior, or senior. Okay, and then at the bottom you have this graph, and the medical schools like to see this graph. They do them themselves. So they say, you were a 2.5 GPA FROSH and sophomore year because you were first gen, so learning how to work, learning how to study, how to manage your time, working part-time, whatever, right? But you did well enough to transfer, and then meanwhile, as you're going through your academic career, your GPA starts climbing steadily upward, and you end strong your senior year, and you're above in the yellow or green zone, and you want to apply anyways, which is fine. And your MCAT score is in the competitive range. I'm gonna say 505 or higher. And you're very selective with the medical schools that you apply to. You apply to 25 schools, you do your due diligence, you look at 150 schools, narrow it down to 40, narrow it down to 25. You say, based on what I've learned about these medical schools, I'm made competitive here. You're going to get at least 5 or 6 interviews from that pool because your GPA showed that you're learning how to adapt. You're showing resilience, and you got good letters of recommendation to show that you have good academic competencies, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the value of this GPA trend. So you can see, engage your progress, and how the medical school admissions committee is going to look at you in a holistic way. Okay. Tip. All right, this might be the most important slide of all. Okay, I'm going to try to convince you, if you're not already doing it, to become an active learner. And this is homework for you, by the way. There's one more homework later on. Look at learning what metacognition is and how that can help you be a more active learner. And it's based on sound cognitive science research. Start with the University of North Carolina Learning Center. They have a wonderful, wonderful resource open to everybody. Type in UNC Learning Center. And then there's a tabs on the very top. One says tips and tools. And there's a handout and video tab. Under the handout and video tab, there's one called Be More Productive. And that involves time management, reflection, time management inventory, and action plan. Remember I talked about SMART goals and act planning? So this is going to have you evaluate, are you making the most of your time? Now, if you're in the semester system, and I learned this at San Jose State, if you want to get C's in your classes, you got to study 2 hours for every unit of coursework that you have at home, not the classroom, if you want to get C's. That's the for the average student. Some students need 30 hours, some do with 10. But the average student is going to need 2 hours for every unit. So that means you're studying, if you're taking 15 units, you're studying 30 hours per week just to get C's. If you want to get the A's, you're studying more, 40 to 50 hours per week. How many people, what is considered full-time employment? 40 hours per week. So basically what I'm trying to say is your job in college, university, community college, is to be a student. You should be doing at least 40 hours of really good study time per week, Monday through Sunday, of quality study time, not 3 o'clock in the morning. Find out what your natural biorhythms, when you're most alert, and try to designate that as study time. Not gym time, not TikTok time, study time. There's more to it than that, but that's my brief overview of looking at where your time is going, and are you studying enough to get the results that you want. The other tab under handouts and videos is study smarter, and all these sections are very important. Higher order thinking, Bloom's taxonomy. There's a video and a description. Learning chemistry. If you haven't taken chemistry yet, do this module before you take chemistry. As pre-med, you got to do a ton of memorizing. As medical students, you can do a ton of memorizing. Not all of us are gifted with photographic memories. The rest of us got to work really, really hard using active learning to memorize. And memorizing strategies, the description and the video, are wonderful examples of how do you have tools that'll help you be better at memorizing. Metacognitive study strategies. Okay, all those are your tools to being a more effective and efficient student. I've used it with many students, and they all come back saying, "Oh, well, this changed my confidence, my outcomes. I didn't get A's right away. I went from C's to B's, from B's to A's in a very gradual pattern, but I'm ready for medical school now." There's also a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful workshop on pre-med CC on the archives by Dr. Carmen Estrada, and it was February 22nd, 2022. In other words, you got to go way to the beginning and then back one page to find Carmen Estrada's workshop on studies, and she uses these study skills. She's a graduate of UC Davis School of Medicine. She's now at Duke doing doing emergency medicine. She has a wonderful Instagram called Carmen Estrada, and a wonderful website called Carmen La Doctora. But start with the workshop at Pre-Med CC to get an idea how to use these things from a medical student who actually used them, these tools. There's also a book that UC Davis School of Medicine students got when they started medical school. I don't think they get it anymore, but they used to. It's called Making It Stick. is based on metacognitive strategies. It's a thin book made for the college student, but it's going to help you understand metacognition and how you process knowledge cognitively. So all these go hand in hand to make you, when you start implementing some of these strategies into SMART goals as well, a more effective and efficient student. It'll give you more time once you handle these things really, really well. It'll give you more time to get involved with research, with clinical experiences, volunteering. I think what I'm trying to tell you is right now, invest, if you're not already getting the academic results that you want, invest in reinventing yourself, becoming an active learner, and getting those grades that you want, that you need. Then invest in, and once you're in a rhythm, invest in these extracurricular activities that are going to enrich your preparation for medical school and your YU/YMD. Again, metrics get you noticed by the medical school. Experiences get you moving through the admissions process, and the attributes that are identified in your full application, AMCAS application, that's what gets you accepted by different medical schools. More homework. Everything that related to holistic advising is going over in much more detail, practical detail by Dr. Luceto in the pre-med CC past events. Hers was conducted on April 5th, and she's the Dean of Admission at UCLA. Think about it. A person of color, a woman, Dean of Admissions, and a very accomplished academic faculty member. Same thing with Dr. Arias at the School of Medicine at USC, April 6th. April was a wonderful month for pre-med CC. Followed by Dr. Willis Jacobo, Dean of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Kaiser Tyson School of Medicine. These 3 workshops all go over how these medical schools practice holistic review. How I'm not BSing you, I'm telling you, use holistic review to your advantage. If you're doing well, continue doing well, but add layers of preparation. If you're not satisfied with your academic preparation right now, reinvent yourself, continue refining yourself, continue evolving as a student. After all, we're human beings. We evolved from a long place. We can continue evolving. And I think everything that I'm telling you, the tools that I'm recommending, plus these wonderful resources will help you unlock your academic potential. I think I'm done for now. There's my email in case you have any questions. And I want to thank you for being a very attentive audience. Let's open up the Q&A. We have a few minutes if you'd like to ask some questions.
Yeah, so our first question, before I start, thank you so much, Dr. Mora-Torres, for that presentation, and really liked how you got into like really specific details and myths about applying to med school. Our first question, so this student is currently majoring in nursing, but lately they've been shifting their focus on applying to med school. They're first gen, low income, 25 years old, and they're attending community college at the moment. And so on top of that, during the first years of college, they didn't do so well, and their transcript reflects that. And so they don't really fit into that typical pre-med image right now. And so they're afraid that their first years will look negative in medical school admission committee reviews. And so they're asking if you have any advice.
If I have, yeah, I do. Thank you for asking that wonderful question. And it's not uncommon for me to hear that from students. No, medical schools are, holistic. They got to look at you holistically. They got to look at that GPA trend. And most importantly is, what did you learn? Remember I talked earlier about what obstacles, what took place that kept you from getting those academic goals that you wanted? First generation of college, working too often, not knowing how to memorize anatomy, physiology, because that's what you need for pre-nursing, anatomy, physiology, general chemistry, not knowing how to study for these classes, not really having the memorizing tools that can look at the memorizing tries to go, oh man, if I had used mnemonics for physiology, I would have got a better outcome. It would have been fun to learn physiology rather than have to memorize all this materials a lot. Yeah. What you're going to discover is that when you start using these tools, learning becomes fun. You say, that's why I love anatomy, physiology. That's why I love organic chemistry. All this makes sense, especially when I apply to pharmacology and I'm seeing how the benzene ring and X, Y, and Z is commonly used for therapeutic medicines, etc. It just makes sense. So you want to grow as a scientist and you want to continue, again, reinvent yourself as a student. Uh, don't let the naysayers put you down. 25 years old is not too late to apply to medical school. 28 maybe by the time you apply. You just got to reinvent yourself. Look at these tools that I'm recommending. Look at these talks by the different people that I mentioned, Dr. Estrada, Dr. Lucero, et cetera, et cetera. Continue looking at some of these videos of Si se puede type of stories or yes you can type of stories that are prominent in the pre-med CC, and that's you. Someday I expect you'll be doing your own talk when you're 35 and you've accomplished all your goals and you say, you know what, I want to share my experiences with this. I encourage you to look at Dr. Angulo's talk. Marco Angulo has a talk on pre-med CC. That's his trajectory is very similar to yours. That brings me up to one more point. Pre-med CC and Juve and I were talking about potentially doing drop-in advising through pre-med CC portal. We don't know what's going to look like yet. And whoever asked that question, I invite you to be one of those persons that I meet with so we can map out your plan of action. But when we do meet, and if we do meet, I would like to start off our session by you telling me what's taking place since you asked a very important question, what you've learned, what you've researched, and what your current plan is. Then my job will be to give you constructive criticism, constructive reasoning to improve that plan. Okay, so keep looking at your pre-med CC announcements. We hope to in the near future announce that we have figured out a way to do drop-in advising in a way that keeps me sane, keeps me retired, doesn't get my wife or my grandkids mad at me for not being there for them, in a way that everybody's happy. Okay, next question, please.
All right. This next question is asking about more about the post-bac programs, like any programs you recommend, resources.
Most students want to do the UC consortium. So that's a good one. If you don't get into those, UC Davis has a good one as well. There's also your local CSUs. For example, if you're in the North Bay, in the Bay Area, like where I live at, San Francisco Bay Area, San Francisco State has a very reputable one. CSU East Bay has a very reputable one. There's an online one from UC Berkeley Extensions as well. I believe some of the other UCs have them. I'm not familiar with the ones down south, to be honest, down south in Southern California, Central Valley. So you just got to look at post-bac programs and then say Fresno or Santa Barbara or California, and they'll give you a list. Just doing a Google search by that. But the UC consortiums are good ones. UC Davis has one separate from the UC consortium. I have two: UC consortium, UC Davis, and then just the UC Davis general post-bac. They're all good. The caveat being is that they can be expensive. Okay, you gotta when you meet with the representative from each of these programs, and I encourage you to do that. One of your steps would be to make an appointment, go to their website, find out how to make an appointment with a representative or a counselor from each of these programs, and do a GPA analysis. Show them that graph that I recommended you do, because that's what they want to look at. Show them that you're prepared. Identify what you need to work on. For example, you say, I'm a 2.8 GPA. Science, I need to get it up to a 3.2, 3.3, but showing all A's. I need to be able to take 6 classes at San Francisco State, at CSU East Bay, upper division biologies, and I need to get all A's. That's my plan. And I did the projection. If I do that, I'm gonna end up with a 3.2 GPA. But more importantly, it shows on the upward trend that I got 4.0 in 1 year for all my upper division biology classes. That's the plan that you want to, if you're able to, that's what you got to do, to be honest. You got to get all A's in your post-bac upper division bio classes. Otherwise, to be honest, you're wasting your money. If you get a C or B's here and there, they're thinking, medical school admissions committee is thinking, well, valiant effort, but that doesn't give us confidence in you finishing medical school in 4 years without academic problems. So yeah, really, post-bacs, you got to get all A's. to get your money's worth. Hope that helped.
All right. I have like some personal questions, or some other questions that I thought of while you're talking. I know you were mentioning like in terms of like health or clinical kinds of experiences, you mentioned like a little bit of medical scribing. Do you recommend like any other like clinical experiences? Because I can see kind of how like medical scribing is a great opportunity, but it's like kind of like what you said, like a little bit more passive, like you're typing notes. And so what kinds of other opportunities would be like more hands-on or like show um more kind of like involvement?
So involvement is going to be medical assisting, EMT, ER, emergency room technician. Those are the ones that I recommend. Health education is, is useful as well. The reason I like medical scribing is because your job is to enter the notes for the whole SOAP continuum. In other words, when you go to a doctor, whether it's for ear infection, broken finger, laceration, COVID, flu, you're gonna go through the whole SOAP continuum as a patient. Subjective, objective, assessment plan. So I encourage you to do a search for SOAP and a capital SOAP acronym in medical notes. And it's going to describe what those means. The reason I like medical scribing is because you get to see what questions are asked to flesh out the medical history. The reasoning that you see patterns of reasoning that clinicians are using. You're going to see whether they're bilingual or bicultural and how important that is in that setting. And that's going to resonate. If you're bilingual bicultural, you can say, oh, that's a strength. That's a superpower. Let me grow that even better. Then you're going to see from the history that was taken through the subjective and through the part of the objective, now what physical exam takes place. For example, if it's a reproductive health, they do reproductive health exams. If it's a upper respiratory, they're going to do a upper respiratory exam. If it's orthopedics, they're going to check the joints and the flexibility in the shoulder and the hand and the strength and all that stuff. So you see the reasoning that takes place from the history to the physical exam, and then from there, which kinds of diagnostic tests are ordered: blood work, ultrasound, X-rays, CAT scans, et cetera, and you put all that together to come up with the assessment, the plan, or to what possible things going on. So you see a line of reasoning taking place. You get to apply your anatomy, physiology, organic chemistry, et cetera, that you've learned and you get to see how it is being applied practically in a clinical setting. So that's why I think, in my opinion, and not only that, but it's a job. Many of our students need to work. We cannot volunteer. We need to work because we got to pay our bills. Our family needs to survive. We got to get ready for medical school, save some money for that, for applications. So that's a good to apply a job with also great growth. If you handle your networking well, you may, without imposing yourself on the clinicians, I'm talking PAs, NPs, and MDs, DOs, to set up a mentoring relationship off, when you're not working as a scribe, and potentially get a letter of recommendation where they would say, I would welcome the opportunity to have Kirsten be my colleague in the near future once she finishes DO school, medical school, PA school, whatever, because our conversations when I supervised her, when she worked for me as a medical scribe, indicated a very good knowledge of clinical medicine, of competencies, of health disparities, social determinants of health, and the role of culture and economics in the outcomes of people. That talks about your competencies that they were observed in a clinical setting in a so-called passive role.
Thank you for that. I'm interested in like working as getting ENT certified or like getting a medical, like working as a medical assistant. So I thought it would be a good question to ask you on your feedback.
If you do get the medical assisting, many clinicians, especially in private practice, will use you in a hybrid role as a medical assistant, but also as a scribe, because that'll save them time and money. So look for, if you do become a medical assistant, look for jobs usually found in on Indeed.com. It's a great search engine. Look for jobs that are hybrid, medical assisting and medical scribe. They're there. That'd be the ideal kind of job if you knew if you but certainly medical assisting, you do more hands-on.
So the only thing that I would just add is that like your personality and who you are reflects what you do. People that do EMT, like you gotta be okay with either working in an ambulance or being in the field, um, working in stressful situations, whereas medical assistant, it's more slower. It's inside the, an office. And so like, yes, ER tech sounds wonderful, but if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to be in stressful situations and under pressure and those different things, then that's probably not going to be a good experience for you. Same thing with scribing. Like if you're not a really fast typer because you need to have like certain typing thing. So I think you gotta like find what's your niche or your interest. Or like hospice care. There's wonderful things that happen in hospice as well, where you basically don't need to have much experience, but to just keep an eye on someone, where like the caretakers are like able to like go take a shower or do some errands and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that happen. And like I talked to someone who was like taking the EMT class, but they were just under, I was teaching that class and they just had a really hard time. And I was just like, it's just not a good experience for you. And so, yeah, so stop, trying to, um, try to find what other people are doing and what your niche is or what your interest is. And you may not know it. I mean, like, I've had people like they go and scribe and they can't stand it. They just don't like it's just, and that's fine. Like, you don't have to do those things, but some people love scribing. So it's all over the place.
So if you have the time, certainly do things that are within your comfort zone, and hopefully you'll get to the point where you're confident enough to want to challenge yourself and into things that are outside your comfort zone. Like start off as a medical assistant or EMT, and then migrate over to an ERT, because that also shows the medical school admissions committee and yourself that you can adapt, that you can do well out of your comfort zone. Because when you start medical school or in your clinical rotations or you do a residency, you're going to be in a high pressure situation, and you need to learn how to handle that. So but again, like to resonate what Juma said, be authentic. Don't do what you think the medical schools want to see. Do things that you think are going to help you grow medical. And again, initially, I agree, within your comfort zone, what you can afford, because a medical assistant can invest as an investment. You got to invest six to $10,000 in the training, or you can try to find a job as an uncertified medical assistant, which can take some time. They are there, but it can take some time to do that. Either way, be authentic, do things that you want to do, but also find opportunities to challenge yourself, to learn how to thrive when you're out of your comfort zone. Adapt, because you want to show yourself and the admissions committee that you can adapt out of your comfort zone, because that's what happens in medical school and in residency as well. All right, my friends, let's call it quits here. I appreciate all your wonderful questions and your wonderful attention. And stay tuned for hopefully we'll have an announcement about drop-in advising or some kind of advising structure to Pre-Med CC. I understand that unfortunately there are not many, I'm going to classify myself, good and competent and current advisors, advisors who are trained and current in health career counseling, advising, or coaching, all the above. And so we want to make sure that students have that opportunity. And please don't advisor shopping. You have a good one wherever you're at, stay with that. Don't say, well, I want to see if we'll go ask something different, because you're taking somebody else's time. Okay, if you're good and you're happy, stay there. You're not going to get extra extra, what do you call it, positive energy from me. Leave that space for somebody else who doesn't have that advising, wherever that may be. Okay. Have a great day, folks. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Juven. Thank you, Kristen. You all have a great weekend. I'm
Thanks.
logging off now.
Thank you so much.